I didn't sign on right away because at first you had to have your senior matric to be considered for pilot or navigator. Mm-hmm. When I suddenly heard they're running short, you were being given a test. So I went, I passed it. I was sent to training. I went to Trenton. And lo and behold, who comes out to test me? The commanding officer of the station. Uh-oh. So sure enough, we got in the plane, and over the crude intercom, he said, "Gun the engine." I gunned it. We raced along. "Brake it." We broke, put the brakes on. He said, "Back to dispersal." We got out of the plane. He said, "I can't let you fly. Your legs are too short." So after waiting for some time, I asked to see the commanding officer and went in to see him. I said, "Sir, I want to move on. I'd like another aircrew posting." He said, "Take your choice." So I did, and I became a bomb aimer. People don't realize the amount of training you did. A couple of years of training, and then New England, they did all kinds of more training. Then the way they crewed people up at a certain time in your training, a bunch of aircrew, equal numbers, were sent to one squadron base. Mm-hmm. Just over the weekend, you were to crew yourself up.
Right, yeah.
And afterwards, if you weren't, they made crews. Yeah. So I met a chap there. He was a pilot, but I'd been in training with him in pilot training. So he asked if I would join him. And, what the hell do you do? I said, yeah. And then a chap came along, and he was a navigator. He said, like, "We're all crewed up. All we need is a bomb aimer. We've looked at your record. We got a hold of it. We want you." So as soon as he told me all this, I went back to the other chap and told him I had another offer. And on flying from another base, the other aircraft, they were all killed on their first mission. Oh, it was that. It was the luck of the draw. The Sterling was really outdated early on, and the Lancaster was a far better, not a far better aircraft, but he replaced the Halifax. The Lancaster was the better of
the heavy lifter.
The Sterling disappeared quickly, and then the Halifax replaced it for quite a while, and we would have got them in time, but we didn't. The attack would take you from there, and you'd be expected to be at the English coast way down south, with all of the aircraft that are going to the target that night formed up strictly by, must be on target, as I say, divert and come back to it, to become one big airstream, the Canadians and the British, and heading for the target. And you were lucky to see another aircraft.
Really?
And there'd be thousands of them sometimes. But one main stream, and that would show the stream, and you're expected to be on target within 2 minutes, and drop your load, and some of them have to hit what you're going for. 90% of the time you saw no other aircraft.
Wow.
Until you got to the target where you were lit up by what was happening. Flying to the target, the pilot would say, "You've got it."
Okay.
And what would be, and as we approached the target, it was at the point, left, right.
Okay.
Heads, okay, bomb's gone.
Got it. So you were giving direction to the pilot.
Oh yeah, not busy, and I didn't. I got assigned. I could take over with my flight training. I could.
Actually, pilot.
I sat beside the pilot. Wow. At one time, they replaced the second pilot with an engineer.
Yeah, flight engineer.
He was behind and working all the controls for the gas and so on. and it was not, and then the seat was taken up by him, but I could take over at any time, and I did. I was given the controls of the aircraft. And then you had a point that you had to join this returning stream, but immediately you dropped the bombs. The pilot now, whatever he wanted to do was go up, down, this or that, but at a certain point, quite quickly, he had to join the returning stream. We only twice did we actually see a night fighter in a close enough position to do us damage. Never saw them. To fly into a target, if it was a mosaic picture, it was beautiful. There were searchlights, there were colored flares coming up. The whole thing was just a beautiful picture. Well, you're so involved in coming to the target, the searchlights and the flak and everything that I said were a beautiful picture, but now you're doing what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to do it at a certain time, and actually, at a normal bombing height, which was about 20,000 feet on the cities, the best they could do with, if you got within 5 miles of your aiming point, you were lucky. You were supposed to be on target within 2 minutes of a given time. And now and then the pilot would have to, because the wind conditions are on, fly a V unit. He would fly off this way, fly back, and lose speed or gain speed in some cases to try and do this 2 minute. You did everything in the world. The master bomb aimer was giving you instructions. You were on the bomb site, and you're trying to get there, and reading later what the hell you were miles away from. It was terror bombing. They were in the most vulnerable, worst position in the aircraft.
I guess they were.
Well, the one we had, the squadron leader, he was about 6 foot tall. And he had a hell of a time back there and all that. He was all alone by himself way back then. There wasn't a medal struck, a medal to be given, the same as other that were in different campaigns. And it was turned down by Churchill because there was then too much talk about terror bombing. We weren't quite sure whether we were getting off at 30 because there was several times we were on our way and the weather or something caused a recall. We're all come back to base. We didn't know whether those were going to count or what. And we actually went through 33 trips because they discounted several. We became a special aircraft for gardening. That one night, we on our squadron base, it was our squadron 429, and then there was 408 squadron on the same base, but with their own aircraft. Anyway, we're apart. But this night there was a briefing, and there was two aircraft from there, 408, and 2 from 429. We were only four people. As the briefing officer said, gentlemen, you are bomber command for tonight. Nothing else is taking off. You will be the 4 aircraft, and you're going to drop mines off the Danish coast. We want to block certain ships that are in there now, and these would be acoustic mines that they didn't know when they'd go off. They had to stop all shipping, and that was this mission. And at the end of the mission, we were so low, I saw masts of ships just yards below us with the heights that they gave us to go in and drop these mines.
At night?
That night,
Good God.
Rain, sleet. And he had said, you are bomber commander tonight, nothing else will take off. I felt real heroes were the poor bastards that had passed their into our crew, and then they flew. and found out they were terrified. And they went on one flight, they went on two flights, they went on 3 flights. Finally, they broke down, and they couldn't fly. They just mentally couldn't handle it. They were called LMF, lacking moral fiber. They were in disgrace, and I felt they should have received real medical attention. And thank you for carrying on when you did, through what you did. I never realized any strain at all.
Wow.
It was like an athlete's performance on a field. You do a job, this was your position, and you went about doing it. You came back or you didn't come back, but no, we had a, I don't know what I would call it, but a very close-knit, wonderful group of guys, and you're so busy on a flight. You're always doing something, and I had no time to think about it. You thought about it, you'd be in the category of these other people. You're either one or the other. And we were so sure that each one of us would do our job right. And we knew it was just lucky. I think 100,000 flew and 60,000 were killed. The machine the Germans had to produce what they did. At the height of the war, all of a sudden they're taking on the Russians. If they hadn't taken on the Russians, God knows how long the war would have gone on. The Russians were the killers, I think, of the whole thing. Americans and the Canadians and the British had allowed the protection of the Germans to go on. The war would have lasted a hell of a long time after it was finished. To allow the protection, they would have, how long they would have lasted, God knows. And I remember one base we went to, we landed there, and they were eating ice cream and having the best of everything in their mess. And I remember they didn't have any place for us to sleep. We ended up in this and that. I slept on the pool table overnight. And then one base we went to, half our squadron ended up in this base. We got diverted. Couldn't get, it was way in the south. And anyway, while we were there, I can remember to this day, because I was in a Nissen hut in the afternoon of the night, after the night of landing, and there was a movie going on. You can win sake if you try. And I can remember that, and then all of a sudden the noise and this and that, things were hitting the Nissen hut that we were in watching the movie. It was a small theater. What we found out when we rushed out, one of their aircraft taking off in daylight caught its wing on the control tower, spun into a dispersal area where our aircraft were, and they were blowing up. Machine gun bullets were going off.
Oh, wow.
And our aircraft was destroyed. And that wasn't a pleasant meeting with the Americans, but nothing to do with this or that. I admired their flying jackets. I remember one time they were having a party, and they had a whack upside down, sort of holding her skirt, but stuffing flowers down in it during their party. They were terrible to their...
Flowers down
flowers,
skirt?
Yeah. Their legs were holding her legs and partially holding her skirt up. And we took exception to this and so forth, but they were completely different in our procedures with the underlings and the ranks and so forth. If we had local pubs, and if we went into a pub and the tables were sort of full and half full, we would always sit with the enlisted people and so forth and so on, and there was no feeling of rank or whatever. We're all doing the same job. No, the British would never do that. They'd either stare at the people and make them get up and give their seats up to them, but they never joined them.
Really?
For God's sakes, they kept the plane flying, and
Yeah.
you picked them up for a party after
Yeah.
you're finished and thanked them for what they're doing and so on. No, there was no rank that we knew
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
we took advantage of. The Canadians, we were in a unique position. We had 14 squadrons, all ringing York in the North Country, and there was nobody else around. We had the whole area to ourselves. We had batmen.
Really?
Yeah, we on the squadron. This place, not only did they have the beautiful squadron base, they had real houses that the former peacetime aircrew lived with their wives and so forth. Well, they were all gone. I had a room all to myself.
Wow.
And a batman for the number of people in the building. And so you put your shoes on at night, good. and after a flight, you came home to bacon and eggs.
Wow, yeah. Bacon and eggs.
Yeah.
Very rare.
And it was all over. We had parachutes that strapped on. They were ready for the parachute. And it went on. And we were allowed to, what they call, spill the parachute when we finished our tour, because we used the same thing for the whole tour. But now it had to be repacked and so forth. What I've got in there is the thing you pull,
The
and the
ripcord.
wire that leads to it, and it didn't open.
Wow.
My bombing leader is there. I remember one day, he called me in, and he said he was going to give a DSC to one of us. He said, "There's two of you that are identical. I can't make a decision. I wonder if you'd mind tossing a coin."
Coin, really?
After the war, I was back here in the back. I worked all my life at Imperial Oil. We had one massive reunion. All people that had been on the 14 squadrons were at Imperial en masse for about a week in York. And it was a magnificent thing.